button here. Okay, so welcome to this week's live Q&A. Today we've got some really good questions that come in, so I'm going to pull them up here. There we are. So, the first one is, wouldn't it be great not to be bothered by those that abused me and being jealous or envious about their success, their happiness, what they have? What can I do to not be bothered by their lives? Well, first and foremost, you can acknowledge your resentment and the feelings there that you are experiencing in reference to their experience, so that you're not denying it. It's like, yeah, I'm not happy that they're happy. That's an understandable result and feeling, especially in response to things that, where we have felt, we've felt or we've experienced abuse from these other people and their lives move on. A lot of times we tend to think, we tend to take that as, I still don't matter to them, they don't care. And that kind of brings up that lack of closure that we often are seeking, and sometimes a lack of justice that we're often seeking with those kinds of situations. So one, acknowledge it and honor it. It's like, yep, that's how I feel. But two, you've got to move your focus from them back to you. See, codependency has this thing called external orientation, where our brain has been trained and conditioned to be fixated on other people. And a lot of times we fixate on those whom we want to be different. And we have to move our focus back to what's called internal orientation, back to ourselves. Hi, Brenda. Back to ourselves, so that we can take responsibility for our lives and deal with what we're facing. Let me get rid of that right there. Okay. So that's what we need to be doing with our lives. We got to turn back to us. We got to start valuing and appreciating our life. You may even have to look into the experience of practicing gratitude for what you have, so that you can maximize in your own awareness what you got and what's going on for you. Okay? Along with honoring the grief, honoring the loss, honoring the injustice you feel and that you have experienced because of the neglect. Okay? So this is one of those things where it's an opportunity to turn back to you, turn back to your life, and stop focusing on them. They don't deserve your attention. They don't need it. It's not going to change anything. And now we got to get into the grieving process, into the accepting process. It's okay to be angry about it. If you go through Frank's 5 stages of grief, where you go through denial, bargaining, anger, depression, and then acceptance, you'll be all over the map in those different stages, but that's kind of what it goes through. So it's an understandable place to be, and it's understandable to feel that way, because I'll tell you, I have felt that way. Especially with my parents. They go on and do the things they want in their life, but hey, you had a discernible and massive impact on my life, but you don't seem to care. So I was actually pretty angry for a while about that. But I had to learn to validate the anger, validate the injustice, and focus on my life and build my life up from there. All right. Second question is, do you have any tips for self-soothing when stress arises due to internalizing or realizing all the ways one is giving away one's own power? Yes. First of all, it's the processes taught in calm. So, and you guys can get calm pretty easily, but it's the processes within that system to regulate. So the palm stroking, breath awareness, also compassion. And compassion is a kind and loving sensation towards our pain. It's an internal validation that we matter, our pain matters, what we've gone through matters, what we're realizing matters, and we need that kind of comfort. Another way to help regulate this is to share and talk about your grief, to share and talk about what wasn't there and what you feel about it, so it can be seen and witnessed and respected. One thing that I've done quite a bit is I get a little plushie toy, and I'll hold it and cradle it. And that helps us also regulate that kind of pain. It helps us feel safe, feel protected, feel like we have some sort of shelter, emotional shelter, with these kinds of things. If you want to dig deeper on compassion, I highly recommend Kristen Neff's book, Self-Compassion, to kind of give you a template of how to approach that, how to expand that, and you can use that in congruence with the tools in Heal, because you're a member of that, of Codependent Confidence. So, and there's validators in Heal you can use as well that will assist you in that process. So that's what I would recommend doing there. The more the more we validate and believe our experience and believe the validity of what we feel, the more compassion is going to show up, the more peace we're going to have. Because you've got programs, you got a program, a voice in your head that says that, yeah, but their pain's more important, or we're not really seeing it correctly, or, what you feel really isn't as important as what they feel. That kind of thing. There's this dismissive programming we have, and we got to knock that out. And I've been dealing with that myself, and I actually caught it this week. Actually, I was like, oh, you're invalidating it. So I started validating, like, yeah, my feelings are legitimate despite their past, despite their pain. They're still legitimate. The more you legitimize your emotions, the more power you're going to have, the more compassion you're going to have, the more healing you're going to have. All right. So next one is suggestions for trusting your awareness when you don't have verifiable support. Well, awareness, when we're aware of something, we have an intuitive hit, but there isn't anything to really back it up, we want to step back from that, and we want to note it, we want to observe it, and you might take some basic actions on it. Maybe you have a vibe about someone that doesn't feel safe or something. You step away from that individual. But I highly recommend observing it and not taking it as a fact until there's some sort of confirmation that shows up. This keeps us out of the realm of projecting things onto people. It also keeps us out of the realm of making mistakes that don't make sense to other people. So it's an easy process to go, something's off here. I'm going to see what happens. And we can just step back and go on with our lives. That's a much easier way of doing that. I have learned, though, if my intuitive hit is right, eventually it will be confirmed. Sometimes that takes a while. I've had some intuitive hits that didn't confirm themselves for a number of years. But then they did. But I've learned out of a lot of embarrassing behavior, embarrassing mistakes, just to step back and observe and see what happens. If I do get a hit that, something's going to be unsafe for me, then I pretty much navigate around that by just observing it and handling it from there. So, all right, so let's see. The next one is, what about when the narcissist uses not calling, allowing you to call them, ghosting you until you want to break and leave? Oh, you're going through the cycle. You're going through what I call the narcissistic or consumer supply cycle. And I've got a little picture here. Let's bring that up. There we go. So I have what I call the consumer supply cycle. Looks like the green screen's having some fun there. But this consumer supply cycle is what keeps us stuck in this experience, okay? So the consumer comes in. This would be the narcissist. They hoover, they love bomb, they idolize the supply, creates a fantasy about the consumer. We, as the supply, we create a fantasy about them because they're love bombing us and we're getting needs met and stuff. And then they go through the devalue stage. This is where you're getting that silence. This is where you're getting the criticism. This is where you're getting the abuse. And then they discard us by going into total silence, not acknowledging us, things like that. When we keep going back to this kind of relationship, we're dealing with what's called trauma bonding or love addiction. And this is a chemical experience in the brain where we are confusing, we have love and fear feelings with this individual that keep us going back. The brain is maximizing the fantasy we have about this person that's based on their love bombing, and it's minimizing the reality of this person that comes from their abusive behavior. So we minimize the pain and maximize the love because we want the fantasy to be true, because if the pain's true, then we have to deal with a lot of stuff that we don't really want to face right now. And some of that will be leaving the relationship, dealing with the complication that creates, facing our own pain, our own loneliness, our own emptiness, that kind of thing. And so this is the kind of cycle that creates that, and it leads to that thing called trauma bonding or love addiction. And so the Addiction to Connection course in Codependent Confidence allows you to move through that experience carefully and in a measured process so that you can get the assistance you need in breaking free from it. It's not something you can work out just with some basic tools and guidance. You need to recondition how you attach and connect to yourself and to others, and you got to heal that what's called pathological or internalized loneliness. And that's what breaks us free of this cycle so that we can get into a healthy cycle, which is where we have a reciprocation going on. Okay, so those are my answers to today's live Q&A. I appreciate you guys being a part of the community. Thank you for supporting each other, for contributing to each other, and for the love and respect and the safety we have in our community. I appreciate it. Remember, guys, you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping, and I will see you guys later. Have a great day, guys.